Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I really want to get this intro right because I keep on fluffing it. I'm going to be talking about bikers and reviewing the novel Satan's Burnouts Must Die by David Sodergren. So David Sodergren is an independently published Scottish horror author who I think is really fun and really interesting, and he writes books which are very much inspired by his love of kind of trashy exploitation cinema and particularly horror cinema. He's published, I'm not sure how many books he's published. I think probably 7 or 8 now, and each of them has a slightly different feel to it. In terms of the ones I've read. So this is the 4th of his books that I've read. So yeah, they each have a slightly different feel, but each definitely feels like a particular kind of trashy exploitation horror movie. And when you're reading them, you can kind of imagine them as films playing out in your mind, which I think is not always a compliment for a book, but in this case I think it is. So I was inspired to make this, or to read this book and to do this video by Michelle's Melancholia, which is a new horror channel which is fantastic and you should definitely check out. So Michelle did a review very recently of 2 of Sodergren's books, Maggie's Grave and The Har, and she really loved both of them, and that reminded me about him. I'd kind of been planning on reading this book for Shorty September anyway, as a book that mixes genres, but I decided to bump it up the list and read it as part of Garb August, which it also fits into. And actually it turns out it's not really a genre mixing book anyway, so I can't remember, I think the prompt for Shorty September was Scorts, so I will have to find something else for that. But yeah, it was an interesting book and a lot of fun. So in terms of Sodergren's books that I've read before, so I've read his first novel, The Forgotten Island, which is kind of a kind of trashy monster type book about people on an island in Thailand on holiday. I've read his second book, Night Shoot, which is like a kind of grim Grand Guignol style, kind of like a Eurotrash 70s horror movie about a kind of, it's not exactly a haunted house, but a house where terrible things happen. And then I've also read his book Dead Girl Blues, which is kind of a giallo, so like a slasher, stylish slasher type book, which I really enjoyed as well. So Satan's Burnouts Must Die is a biker novel basically. So if you can imagine those kind of trashy, sex and violence filled biker movies from the late 60s, early 70s, it's very much in that sort of vein. And it's about a small town that gets invaded by this gang of bikers, Satan's Burnouts, who claim to be, have some sort of relationship to Satan. They're definitely kind of Satanists, but there isn't really necessarily a supernatural element to the book, which I thought there would be, but there wasn't. But that's not a problem. So they invade this town, and there's this old guy in the town who is Sam, who's a military veteran and who tries to stand up against them. But at the same time, and this is one of the things that Sodergren does really well, is he always has little twists in his books, so he's very much paying homage to the kind of movies that that he loves so much, and his Twitter channel, his Twitter account, I think is Paperbacks and Pugs, and he posts very regularly about like wonderful trashy old movies on there. So he really does clearly love that kind of thing. So he's definitely paying homage to that kind of trashy biker movie. But as in all his books, he gives it a kind of modern twist. And the modern twist he gives it here is that Sam, who at the start of the book feels like he's going to be the hero, actually turns out to be a bit of a reactionary old dick, to be honest with you. And that's not really a spoiler. His granddaughter, who's been away travelling, is coming back to visit him, and it becomes clear that she's going to arrive just after the bikers, kind of let loose on the town. So you've got that additional tension of her coming back, and she becomes more of a central character. And the way he sets it up is that he sets it up, and there is some explicit discussion of this, but he sets it up as that kind of story that's about a man taking revenge for women he knows who have been wronged, which is a kind of terrible trope that you see played out again and again and again. And Sodergren flips that on his head by making the granddaughter, the central character. And it works really, really well. And I enjoyed the book more and more the more I read of it. So for a lot of it, I was thinking it was kind of a 3-star read. But what he does at the end is just fantastic. I love the ending, and it definitely bumped it up to 4 stars for me. It was really good. What I would say though is this book is extremely graphic. To an extent, I'd almost call it extreme horror. But I don't think it is extreme horror because he doesn't dwell on the graphic scenes. He lets you know what is happening, and it is horrible. But he doesn't go into that kind of level of forensic, anatomical detail that you tend to get in extreme horror, where a murder scene can take kind of 20 pages. In this book, many people die, and they all die horribly. But it's a couple of sentences, no more than that. So it doesn't feel exploitative in that sense, or too unpleasant in that sense, but it is really, really graphic, to an extent that, I said it feels like a lot of his books were inspired by films. If this was filmed as it is written, I'm not sure any cinema would show it, because it is extremely horrific, and there is a fair amount of kind of sexual violence in it as well as other types of violence. So definite trigger warnings there. But it's really gripping. Despite the graphic nature of the violence, it's just really fun. It's a really entertaining book. And as I say, the ending is fantastic and leaves it open for a sequel, which he does, kind of signpost at the end that there's going to be a sequel. And I will definitely read that, because I thought this was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed that review. If you've read David Sodergren, do let me know in the comments what you think of his stuff. I think he's a really interesting author, and I'm definitely going to read, try and fill in the gaps that I've got so far in terms of his bibliography and what I have and haven't read by him. So yeah, let me know if you've read him and what you think of him. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio. Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, bikers, I want to talk about the book The Devil's... Hello, I'm Ollie, and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, bikers, I want to talk about the novel Satan's